I want to introduce our group. I'm going to present now Mark, Paul, and Brandon. I didn't write anything out for this because I just wanted to share a little bit of a tangential story. Mark and Paul have been very active members of our recovery committee for quite some time. Paul and I learning from them and growing because of them for years now. And then Brandon came on board when the Zoom thing started and just took off like a rocket. He helped us like I can't even express. I had a little glitch with my Crossroads Zoom DRA meeting the other day, and I was trying to figure out what to do about it. And I thought, oh, I'll just call Brandon. And all of the stress and weight lifted off my shoulders. I knew he was out there to reach out to. So thank you guys for all you're doing and all you've been doing. It was maybe 6 months ago, I was sitting in a committee meeting. Mark and Paul were not even sitting next to each other. They were across the room. I could go to a DRA meeting at the comfort of my own home. This would be so cool. I got really excited about it. And then 2 months later, it had to happen because of COVID. And right away, they were on the line making it happen. I was getting emails from the two of them. Okay, we're online today, this afternoon. Are you in, Julie? Yes, I will clear my schedule. I am in. Found a sitter for my son. Figured it out. It had to happen. I'm just so grateful for them, for all of their hard work, because Crossroads Clubhouse, we were able to pull up our Zoom meeting, and a big reason why I was able to do that is because they helped me. I know that they have had a huge impact in our virtual community as well as our real world community. And so I'm so proud to introduce them today. They're going to talk to us about establishing digital DRA meetings and share a little bit of their stories. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
My name's Mark. I'm in life recovery and a member of DRA. Hi, everybody. I would like to thank Reva and Julie from the MCC, Caitlin from MBHP, and Val for her leadership, and everybody today as a part of what makes DRA so special in Mass. So thank you. Last but not least, Zoom. Thank God for this platform, which has made it possible for us to meet in these times of social distancing so we can continue on our path of personal recovery together. Now a little history. Paul and I started to talk about the benefit of an online platform at last year's retreat as an option for people to participate in a way they are comfortable with, and as an option to a conventional Do Recovery Anonymous meeting. The intention is to meet people where they are. The person who is isolated, the person in DRA who is at the highest risk, the one who is alone to cope with their dual challenges. We in DRA know that it's a we program, not an I program. And together, we learn to cope. Paul and I started meeting once a month with this idea. We started to explore different platforms, and we were clueless. Paul and I needed some help with this exploration. So Paul suggested we involve Brandon, Peter Garrity, and a few others, including Jason Wright from Riverside. What a team of eager people who just wanted to help in any way they could. We continued to work on the development of this meeting far away from the launch. Fast forward, COVID-19. Right away, Paul and I realized the urgency around people having support for dual disorders, including myself. We need to start this online support now for us and others who will need this during troubling waters like a lockdown. DRA is a bridge over troubled waters, and now with the pandemic and the isolation from the lockdown, we are all at higher risk to pick up or fall back into old behaviors. This propelled us to launch this meeting earlier than planned, and we learned on the fly. There were many obstacles like finding the best practice for facilitation of a Zoom DRA meeting. We found it easiest to run as a round robin to ensure that we all have a chance to share, and we learned other valuable Zoom host skills to help us to have a natural flow. We also have a lot more to learn, like the Serenity Prayer. We will share later some of the tricks we learned together for Zooming later in this presentation. I need to say that the experience of taking DRA virtual has been an amazing experience and has helped me to grow in my recovery and meet great people like me all around the state. Now I would like to ask Paul to speak about this collaborative Zoom experience in pre and post COVID.
Thanks, Mark. My name is Paul. I wanted to expand upon the uncertainty that we face as we embark on this journey into uncharted territory. Just like how Alcoholics Anonymous' very own Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were venturing into the unknown when they began the first Anonymous program, we were motivated to get this Zoom meeting going, and we knew what the meeting had to satisfy. But we had no clue what to expect as far as how it would go. First thing to remember, especially now when Zoom DRA meetings are abundant, is that on March 17th, because of the lockdown, no Zoom DRA meeting. And since many DRA members also attend other anonymous groups such as AA, NA, OA, MA, etc., I think it's important to note the last AA meeting I went to in person was on March 17th. So this problem was compounded. Where DRA was once unique in its members' obstacle to find meetings, Now everyone with an addiction and a corresponding 12-step program faced that obstacle. The need for DRA meetings was suddenly paramount. As Mark mentioned, he and I had been working on a Zoom DRA meeting for quite some time. We had included a few NRH members on this quest, such as Peter Garrity, Arez, Brandon, and colleagues such as Wright from Riverside ACCS. But because of the uncertainty we faced, we wanted to keep this group small and focused. We had plans to launch our first test Zoom DRA meeting with the DRA format right around March 17th, and it suddenly occurred to us Mark took on the role of the juggernaut, smashing his way through obstacles and uncertainty. Brandon was the whiz kid, responding to each of Mark's ideas with optimism and practical application, and I, admittedly, was the skeptic. Though I wish I could say that I was as confident as Mark and Brandon, I wasn't. But the silver lining is that the role of the skeptic and devil's advocate does have its merit. I questioned the feasibility and accessibility of each element of our Zoom meeting and wondered just how useful the meetings would be if many DRA members couldn't attend them. But Mark and Brandon's confidence and optimism fueled our determination, and we had our first Zoom DRA meeting on March 24th. Not only was it our first Zoom DRA meeting, but from what we can tell, it was the first Zoom DRA meeting in the world. Pretty cool. Mark and Brandon were Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, and I was that first alcoholic that they got sober in 1935 in Akron, Ohio. Up against what seemed to be insurmountable obstacles, I suddenly realized that by tapping into the magic contained within one DRA member helping another, the sky was the limit. The next obstacle was, of course, getting others on Zoom. Luckily, Julie Sprinkle was one of the first people to rally behind the Zoom DRA meetings, and along with Mark and others affiliated with the Massachusetts Clubhouse Coalition and Department of Mental Health, Zoom DRA meetings started popping up everywhere. Brandon took over most of the reins of running the Zoom DRA meetings that NRH hosted, which left only one hurdle for me, getting our technologically impaired members on Zoom. And that was tough. It took Mark, Arez, Peter, Brandon, and I months of communicating with Riverside's IT department and troubleshooting at Neponset River House before we felt even remotely comfortable running a Zoom DRA meeting. So how do we expect to get people like Jean McGilvery, who panicked when her computer cursor disappeared while typing, or Peter Garrity, whose cell phone was turned on as often as Halley's Comet passed overhead? There were members of our DRA meetings who didn't even own a cell phone, and some who didn't even know how to turn a computer on. The need was there. These same DRA members needed to stay sober. So I went case by case, and I'm sure that everyone else out there who has helped get a Zoom DRA meeting off the ground has had to do the same. It's not easy, but it's why clubhouses are built around relationships. I knew the exact technological limitations of each member who wanted to join DRA, and I tackled one at a time, continued to support them each time we have a DRA meeting. One of our regular members, Heather, hi Heather, started just by calling in by landline telephone, but when she obtained a computer from her aunt, I sat with her on the phone while she clicked away at her computer screen until I saw her face pop up on my computer. She was in. Two of our members have no problem navigating Zoom, but they have a hell of a time searching for old emails. The solution is that I send them the Zoom link about half an hour for every DRA meeting. Jean McGilvery doesn't even know what a computer is. I kid, of course, but the truth isn't far off. Yet Jean has been to almost every single meeting we've held at NRH via Zoom, and we have upwards of 6 different Zoom meetings, 3 of which are DRA, per week. All we had to do was coordinate with her daughter and her husband to get her on each time. Nobody likes admitting that they were wrong, but when being wrong is due to hard work and collaboration with 2 amazing people like Mark and Brandon, along with dozens more now, and when being wrong means that hundreds of people can maintain their recovery plans in the midst of a global pandemic, then damn it, it feels good to be wrong. Now I'd like to turn it over to Brandon so he can tell you about his experience helping to steer the Mayflower of Zoom DRA meetings.
Thank you. I'm happy to be recognized as an integral part of the Neponset River Community Clubhouse and a powerful advocate for mental health awareness. What has been a hurdle of challenging times in my life has become my greatest asset, and Neponset River House has become the doorway to that information. I'm now dauntless in speaking my mind because I know others will listen. I am better able to rely on others as they have relied on me. Before the time of quarantine, I was struggling with the aftermath of my 5th mental hospitalization, and I'm not sure what the future held in store for me. I'd achieved enough already. College had been difficult with the onpouring of emotional and financial stress following the loss of my father. He was a jack of all trades. He could do carpentry, plumbing, electricity, you name it, he could do it. Other than the stress from family and working for a high-end computer company, it was too much for him. My father, with a long history of internalized depression, took his own life in May of 2011, immediately following my high school graduation. It was the worst timing. He wasn't a drinker. He didn't smoke or use. He wasn't violent towards anyone. He, in fact, was a community leader, but he never asked for help, and that was his undoing. His life lives on through me, and I wish to set it right on the correct path through DRA. DRA, for me, has been an experiment in speaking effectively and working with others. I had a taste of this at my previous job, where I would be expected to give and receive directions in order to fulfill a regimen of tasks on a timely basis. Started as a custodian and moved around the departments to Stop and Shop, finding that I could achieve much about anything that I set my mind to. However, the more I moved around, the more my anxiety grew. I had to put it all to a stop. That was when I discovered the Clubhouse. In my recovery, I attended the first meeting of DRA on a whim, and it was empowering. I didn't hesitate to speak my mind. I was allowed to take off the mask I had worn for far too long. I was allowed to laugh. I was allowed to cry. I realized these things were okay. I don't see emotion as a weakness, but as a strength. Over the course of these past 2 months, I assuredly became aware of the necessity and power of Zoom. Everything my father has taught me has been put to the test. Patience, diligence, and honesty have all been great tools to have as I have become a stable chair in the NRH DRA meetings, and the drop of COVID has surely been a sign that I was ready to step up my game. Don't get me wrong, I've come a long way. However, the climb is never without challenge. The way forward is not fully clear to any one person. Nobody can predict every step along the way. I believe that without DRA, I too would come to a great fall. And this is the power of DRA. In the past, I've compared myself to Harry Potter, unable to find much relief in the mundane world, and briskly coerced into an unknown world of adulthood. Dark Dementors are fun because we fear them, and in this way they have cast shadows over our lives. And yet we are faced with unfamiliar darkness. I have found my Patronus. True Recovery Anonymous has been my guiding light because there is no judgment of any kind. Whether you have come from a life of depression or anxiety, addiction or not, we welcome you.
Now we're going to go over some Zoom skills that are valuable for facilitating DRA on Zoom. They're valuable skills that we had to learn the hard way. Admitting is very important for a Zoom host to become skillful at. I would like to say I've perfected it. As all of us of the Zoom hosts know, it's a process, progress, not perfection. If you look on the screen, there's a place to admit on the right. It defines people waiting to get into. So it's a good time to admit people, but also as they come on, to ask them, what would you prefer to be referred to? And at this time, it gives us a chance to change the person's name. To review, the way that you admit is by clicking on participants in the options bar. The participants box will open and it gives you an option to admit. That allows you to enter the meeting. The participant box also, as I stated, has an option to rename. Video and audio Zoomers have that renaming option. I would like to talk a little bit about screen sharing. Screen sharing is an essential part of DRA facilitation on Zoom. That little green button allows you to share your screen. This is the best way to be inclusive to the group. Screen sharing, this encourages participants to be a part of the meeting and to engage. Another thing that you can utilize in this option is what's called the waiting room. The waiting room can be viewed in the participant option. When the box opens, you can view who is admitted and those who are waiting to be admitted as we speak. So as I said before, you can be admitted and who is already in the meeting. You can change the name. Sometimes people come across the wrong Zoom ID, and it's important to know anonymity's sake. So now we'll move on to the chat box. Chatting with co-hosts to allow for a seamless meeting. The chat icon, which is a speech bubble, can be found in the options bar. This allows links to be shared or facilitators to communicate privately to ask one another to cover the meeting. Example, be right back, which happens. Now I'm going to turn it over to Paul to talk about some of the fine-tuning skills of hosting a Zoom meeting.
Probably my favorite feature is muting. In the real world, when somebody won't shut up, we have to be polite and tolerate them. In the Zoom world, you can mute them just like your TV. Of course, I'm kidding. We don't mute people while they are sharing just because we might not agree with them, but we do use the mute feature extensively to silence inadvertent background noise from people's computers, tablets, or phones that they might not even be aware of. We usually start the meeting by reminding our participants that when we mute people, it's not personal. It's just to allow for the speaker to have fewer distractions when sharing. Sometimes we mute everyone for the entire meeting, only unmuting people when it's their time to share. That little button there next to someone's name, it looks like a microphone. If you click on that, that's how you mute someone. If you decide not to mute everyone because it's a smaller meeting, you can use the mute feature more selectively. For instance, if suddenly we hear interference of some kind, whether it's a bird or a ringing telephone or construction work, Zoom will actually show us where the sound is coming from. There's a few ways of doing that. One is that yellow box around someone's face or even the yellow line show sounds, but even more useful for me is next to someone's name, the little microphone you see that you click to mute will fill with color to show that there's sound coming from that person's computer. And if that's the person that's not sharing, you can click that. Hand raising is another feature that we've learned to use, though it hasn't been as essential to our meetings as we had predicted. Hand raising cannot be done by someone calling in on a phone rather than using the app or computer, which is one downside, but can be useful, and some hosts have opted to use the hand raising extensively. You see the little hand next to the person's name? That's what it looks like when someone raises their hand. The thing to be mindful of is the different views your participants may have. Some people will be calling in on their telephones without using the app. They will not see any of the interface that the rest of us see and will only hear the meeting as if it was a conference call. And when they are muted, they will be notified of this by a robotic voice telling them you are muted. Other than that, the Zoom app and Zoom software varies from computer to computer, tablet to tablet, phone to phone. And rather than going into detail on all these nuances, we suggest that anyone who wants to host a Zoom meeting take some time to check out the different interfaces so that they can effectively walk some of the participants through using all the Zoom features. Lastly, I wanted to talk about inviting people to your Zoom meeting. When you open up the participants window, you'll see at the bottom, participants window icon is circled in red on the left side of my share. When you click on that, the participants window comes up. Also, I highlighted where a raised hand would be for someone that can raise their hand. When the participants window comes up, you have the option to invite. At the very bottom, you'll see a button that says invite, and then this screen pops up. You can invite people by your contact list, cumbersome, or you can click on the bottom left, it says copy invite link or copy invitation. And those are two different ways. It'll go onto your clipboard on your computer. You can go into an email, hit paste, and the whole invitation will show up. Zoom makes it very easy to copy and paste invitations or even just to send them by email, but some people may be confused by all the different options of how to log into a Zoom meeting. If you know your audience, you can make it easier. Just make sure you include the full link to the Zoom meeting or the phone number they must call along with the meeting ID and password. And that's most of the tools I've learned. Brandon, you want to finish it off?
Before all this COVID stuff, before even I was a club member, I'm a player of what is known as Dungeons and Dragons, which is an older game of imagination. Perhaps you are an adventurer and you come to this dragon's cave and you have to fight it off, or what do? We play these adventures and we wonder, will we fight the dragon? Will we persuade it to be our pet? Will we take its treasure? What will we do? And the way I do that with my friends is called Discord. This was one of the suggestions I made to Mark and Paul as an alternative to Zoom. You can see I have all my friends here. I can make a server and it'll roll dice. For example, if I go R1D6, it'll roll a die, supposedly, and you can see it'll come up with a 5 out of a 6-sided die. It's just a great place to put characters. If people want to chat to each other, they can post videos, they can have all these sorts of fun games. And I've been using that not just for games, but to keep in contact with people who I might not be around with on an ordinary basis, which has been, going back to the community thing, has been just so much good support for me. So thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you,
Let's hear it
guys.
for this group. Woo!
That was
Awesome
excellent.
job, all three of you. Fantastic.
And I will say that, everybody can relate to this. When you're on Zoom, in the meeting itself, it can be a little stressful at times to find the right buttons, to know you're, connecting in the right way, and to have an opportunity to kind of look at the screens and go, oh, that's what that's for. I've seen that, but I haven't wanted to click on it because I've been afraid of what would happen. So this was really helpful to walk us through the interface and help us to kind of see the best way to connect and what's safe to click on and what the different things mean. So thank you guys very much. And also thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences. As always, for me, and I think for a lot of people, that's the stuff that really sticks and has so much meaning. So thank you, guys.